I want to talk about the question that is on everybody's minds, and that is, when are we going back to in-person services here at Purpose Church? And here's the answer. We don't know yet, but here's what we do know. We won't be the first church back, and we also won't be the last church back. We won't be the first, but we're not going to be the last. You know, over the last couple of weeks, I've been communicating with megachurch pastors all across Southern California for the past 2 weeks. And I find myself, there are so many opinions out there, and from good people, tremendous leaders, people that love the Lord and that I care about so much as my friends. But I find myself torn between two extremes. Now that doesn't surprise me, because I have always, in my ministry, been more like a Barnabas than like a Paul. And you go, Pastor Glenn, what are you talking about? Well, let me share two passages from the book of Acts and then two passages from the book of Romans to explain what I'm talking about. The first one is Acts 11. Then Barnabas went to Tarsus to look for Saul. That was his Hebrew name. His Greek name was Paul. And when he found him, he brought him to Antioch. And there Paul began to mentor this tremendous young leader, Paul. Now, Paul was a great leader, and Barnabas was an encourager. As a matter of fact, his name means the son of encouragement. Now, I've always been a Barnabas, but I have mentored many Pauls down through the years. Pastors like Chris Brown or Josh Hoosman, and now Eric Holmstrom, and many others beyond those three. Now, in this debate, I find myself torn between two Pauls, or in my case, between two Browns. And you'll say, Glenn, what in the world are you talking about? Well, the two main voices of the extremes in this debate are Chris Brown and Matt Brown. Here's a picture of Matt Brown. Matt Brown is the pastor of Sandals Church in Riverside, and Pastor Eric and I got to know him when Matt Brown, Chris Brown, Eric and I were on a trip to Ecuador, sponsored by Compassion International for pastors of large churches from across the country. And Pastor Eric and I, we already knew, obviously, Pastor Chris Brown really well, but we also got to know Pastor Matt Brown and just have such respect and appreciation for him. And Matt is the main proponent of the position to open now in spite of Governor Newsom's stay-at-home order. He's the major proponent of open up churches now in spite of Governor Newsom's stay-at-home order. And you can find the link of his talk in this week's study guide under the title, Why Should Churches Open Soon? Now, this position is backed up by Acts chapter 5, verse 29, where it says, Peter and the other apostles replied, we must obey God rather than human beings. We need to obey God rather than human beings. Now, I have to admit that there's a part of me that really resonates with them. I mean, it's annoying. Why should we be able to have 500 people in a Costco and not have 500 people in a church service? Why should porn stars be at work and pastors not be at work? Why should churches have to wait to have services until the Dodgers and the Angels can play ball games? That's one position, open sooner rather than later. Now here's a proponent of the opposite position. Here's a picture of Chris Brown, and now we come to the opposite side of the spectrum, the let's be the last to reopen position. Now obviously Chris is a very, very good friend, a very good friend of me and of Purpose Church. Chris was our student ministries pastor for 7 years and on our teaching team here at Purpose Church for 10 years. And he's going to be back to preach here on October 4th. So mark that in your calendar. Chris will be here to preach on October 4th. And Chris and I have had discussions about this debate, and you can find the link of his talk on this issue, again, in this week's study guide under the title, Why We Aren't in a Rush to Open Our Doors. Now this position is backed up by Romans chapter 13, verses 1 and 2. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. Now, there's a part of me that really resonates with this position as well, because of scriptures like the one I just read. Also, because of our witness to the community. People in our community they're divided on how to deal with COVID-19. And as a church, we could be a stumbling block to those who want a more cautious approach. I was talking with a county official just yesterday, a high-ranking county official, and he spoke about the tremendous relationship Purpose Church has with the city of Pomona, with our mayor, and with our chief of police. And we don't want to do anything that would put them in a tough position and possibly hurt that special relationship. Also, there are practical reasons why maybe we want to open up a little bit later and not right away. We have to remember that when we come back, it is not going to be immediately like March 8th, which is the last time we were all together. Oh, that seems so long ago. When we get back, it's not going to instantly be like that. If we come back in a couple of weeks, we're going to need to be physically distanced. We're going to all be wearing masks. Everyone is going to have their temperature taken before they come into church. You're going to have to make online reservations for a particular worship service. You can't sing during worship or hug or talk to people. But right after the service is over, you have to make a beeline straight to your car and leave right after the service is over. Now, that's not the real challenge. The real challenge is children, because children are not that great at physical distancing. They have a hard time with that, whether they're in the worship service with us together or whether they're in children's ministries. Now, I always like to say sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. And let me show you a picture right now. This is Fellowship Church in Grapevine, Texas. It's pastored by Ed Young Jr., and this is one of the greatest mega churches in America today. But look at that picture. They just reopened a week or two ago. Does that look like one of the most thriving churches in America? No, it doesn't. And so it begs the question, is this what we're rushing back to? If you're like me, looking at that picture and saying, this is a thriving, on fire church, is this what we're rushing back to? And you look at that picture, and if you're like me, you say, yes, I want to get back to that. I can feel your pain. It's like, yeah, whatever it's going to be like, I want to get back as soon as I can. I look at that picture and I say, look, he gets to preach to actual people. I'm so jealous. I want that again. But you know what? You can see the point, can't you? We may want to wait until church is a little bit more like church before we come back. Do you see the reasonableness of that? Or to put it another way, our vision here at Purpose Church is everyone everywhere following Jesus. And right now we believe that we can fulfill that vision better virtually than we can in person. But I want to promise you, as soon as we believe we can fulfill that vision, everyone everywhere following Jesus, better in person than we can do so virtually, we will reopen. Now, do you see why I'm so much like Barnabas? I can articulate both positions. I can even be passionate about both positions. Now, let me tell you why I think that is a good thing, that your pastor is more of a Barnabas than a Paul during this particular moment as the pastor of Purpose Church. As I hear from our people, as I talk to members of our church family, our church is divided right down the middle on this issue. I'm telling you, from the people I hear from, it's just about 50-50. You see the two extremes and everybody on the spectrum in between the two of those. We are right down the middle, 50-50, as opposed to those on one side, open as soon as possible, and those on the other side, let's open as late as possible, and everything in between. And that's why our leadership and you, the people of Purpose Church, have been saying, let's not be the first to reopen, but on the other hand, let's not be the last to reopen either, because we are sensitive to the needs of those in our church family who are just desperate for Christian fellowship. We want to be sensitive to their needs as well. So here's what I want to promise you. We're going to open as soon as we can do so while being a good witness to our community and keeping you safe and keeping our community safe. Now, there is some ministry that just can't be done virtually. So if you're just desperate for some face-to-face fellowship and ministry, please let us know. We will send a pastor or a volunteer over to your house, and they will stand in your front yard and pray for you. They will stand on the other side of the screen door with a mask on and you have a mask on, and they will pray for you. They will talk to you. We have called thousands and thousands of people, and we've asked them the question from our church and from the community, how can we help? But if we haven't gotten to you yet and you have a need, please give us a call or go to purposechurch.com/help, and we want to be there for you if you are just desperate until we can get back to live services face-to-face once again. Now, as the numbers increase as to how many can meet together, we want to minister to our congregation in thirds. We think future ministry is going to be a third, a third, a third. The first third will be those that continue to join us online, that you, for whatever reason, need to stay alone, just you and your family, and so that's going to be a third of our church. Then there's going to be the third that as the numbers increase as to how many can meet together, who will begin to be a part of watch parties at a home. Maybe you go to a home and you have lunch together, you watch together, and then you have lunch together. And so a third will be at their own home watching online. A third will be part of these watch parties. And then number three, the third is the third that will want to come to our campus physically when we resume in-person worship services. And that could be sooner than you think. Right now we are in phase 2A. And at this point, churches have to wait to meet together until phase 3. But I've heard some rumblings that churches may get moved to phase 2C or to phase 2B or even phase 2A, the one that we're in right now. I am taping this on Thursday, May 14th. So by the time you see this on Sunday, this whole situation is very fluid and it may have already changed by the time you're hearing this on Sunday. Now, another thing that makes it difficult is that our church is in Los Angeles County, which is earlier in phase 2. But our Purpose Church family, we're a regional church, and so our Purpose Church family comes from 4 different counties. And so San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange counties are later in phase 2 than LA County is. Now, I want to finish this part of my message by reading Romans 14, verses 1 through 4. The big debate today among Christians is when to reopen our churches. But the big debate among Christians in 57 AD was whether to be a Christian you still had to follow the kosher Jewish diet. That was the big debate they had back then. So as I read this, think about the debate that they were facing, but then also think about the debate that we are facing as well. Romans chapter 14, verses 1 through 4. Except the one whose faith is weak, without quarreling over disputable matters. This is not a matter of salvation. When to reopen our churches is a disputable matter. Wonderful Christians, sincere Christians can be on either side of this debate. And so don't quarrel over disputable matters. One person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not. Let's be careful not to treat each other with contempt if we have a different perspective on COVID-19. And the one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does. Let's not judge each other on this issue. Let's not have churches judging each other. Let's not have Christians judging each other. For God has accepted them. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master, servants stand or fall, and they will stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand. Would you be in prayer for me? I ask your prayers. As your pastor, I want to get this right. I really do, more than about any other decision that we've ever made. Pray for our leadership. Let's pray for each other that God is going to give us wisdom as we make this decision in the weeks ahead.